Welcome back to another UNC Tar Heels basketball podcast here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. And if you're watching us on our very fast-growing YouTube channel, that is called Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THI publisher Andrew Jones, and joining me is our Director of Basketball Recruiting and Analyst, longtime AAU college and high school coach, Mr. David Sisk. And David, we continue to look ahead to Carolina's basketball season. That's getting closer and closer as we do podcasts focusing on individual Tar Heels. And in this podcast, we're going to talk about 6'4" sophomore Anthony Harris. He's in his third year at Carolina. Well, he played 5 games his first year and redshirted, came in with a knee injury, got a different knee injury his freshman year, came back last year in the middle of January when they were at Florida State, gave him a juice injection, had a pretty important role in a handful of games, and certainly was played in the last 16 games. I don't know. Of all the guys on this roster this year, Anthony Harris and Leaky Black are maybe two. I can't put a finger on exactly what kind of role they're going to have. It might be based on how other guys play, and it might be something that just simply evolves over time. What are your thoughts about Anthony Harris?
I want to go back to the conversation that we had about RJ Davis, where I said I'm going to sound like a broken record on some of these guys. And I'll be honest, I kind of put him in the mix with a lot of these other guards. It's like you say, it's going to be a free-for-all. The discussion we had with when we did the RJ Davis clip was, what kind of rotation does Hubert want to play? Do they go really deep? Do they not go deep? Do you play everybody between 15 and 25 minutes? Do you play certain guys 30 minutes? Do you play other guys 5 minutes? There's one thing, that's something right now that's being decided in practice that to kind of give Coach Davis and I and the staff an idea going in when the year starts. And then you have the opportunity to put your best foot forward. There's one thing about him, I was trying to, when we first started doing these earlier today, we were trying to go back and document, how much playing time he had. Obviously, he's had injury problems, knee problems, and all that. I'll go back to last year. I specifically, I think I remember the game was Florida State.
Yeah, that was his first game last year.
Yeah, and he just really gave them such an energy boost. They were just kind of just wallowing around. And I think if they had a game, you think a lot of games last year they let get away. If there was a game last year where they were really on the ropes and you're trying to figure out how in the world did they win, it was probably that game against North Carolina State.
Yeah.
Florida State.
Florida State, yeah.
But he gave them that spark. So that's what he does. And here's the thing too, he's been able to go through workouts. And the thing is, when the season's over in March, it's not like they sit around October before they get back out there. So he's been going through workouts. He's been going through scrimmages. He's been going through 5-on-5s, pickups. And now you get full bore into practice. And we've not heard anything about any injuries about him. So that knee has been able to get stronger. We don't know from the original Anthony Harris, who was a top 75 player out of high school, was very talented, very heralded player, to now we don't know maybe how much push, how much strength, how much quickness he's lost. He appeared to be very quick when he played last year, but he had to be rusty too because he didn't have the preseason and all that to get ready. He comes off off an injury, and you throw him right into the game. So he really didn't have all those reps and that time to get. So he's had that now. And, he's had a chance to work. He's had a chance to get stronger. So, if he does have that in him where he can get back to 100%, he certainly had the time to work on it. So we're going to throw him in that lump of those other guys and just kind of see when it shakes out, who's there and who's not.
This was his first off season where he could actually improve his game since the summer before his senior year in high school. Mm-hmm. So think of even last year with COVID, they still worked out. They still got, arrived in Chapel Hill in July and they practiced and everything else. He missed all that. He got injured his senior year in December of his senior year in high school. His first game, I think, was the 8th or 9th game, was at UVA. They went up there and got I mean, it's just an ugly game. And he played 5 games. Without him, they don't beat UCLA in Las Vegas. And then he's playing pretty well against Yale, drives the baseline, and boom. And the thing that really stuck out to me then was we didn't know for sure what his status was. I think that game was maybe a Wednesday night. And on Friday, it was a day before conference play started. I think they played Georgia Tech the next day. And we had Roy in a press conference, and they announced that Anthony was out for the year. And I remember after the game when he was injured, just the solemn nature of the players. They were very upset, very distraught about him getting injured because the kids loved him, saw how hard he worked to get back. And a lot of times athletes aren't really like that when a guy gets hurt because injuries are part of the game. They see it all the time. But with him, it was different. And Roy was really upset. So he didn't play again for 12 and a half months. And then he gives him that injection. So this is the first time that he had a full regular offseason at North Carolina, playing at a high level, playing pickup with all those pros that come back and with his teammates, developing that chemistry. So he's kind of a wild card in a way, because he could be a guy that ends up playing 20 minutes a game. We have no idea. Or he could be a guy that, we've kind of seen what he is, and maybe he's 9th or 10th in the pecking order. I have no way to lean. We can only go by what we've seen. So the expectation for most people is going to be, well, he's probably 9th man. Okay. But we've never seen him after an offseason. We've never seen him at full strength, not just physically, but playing where he knows he's not even thinking about the knee anymore.
We can make that assumption, though, about every player in the backcourt, with the exception of Caleb Love. And you and I have talked. I think RJ Davis is going to step up. Kerwin, yes, but how much do they play? Especially when you throw in Harris, you throw in DeMarco Dunn. You go to the bigger wings. You start looking at Dontre Styles. You start looking at some of these other guys, Leaky Black. Some of those, where do they all fit in?
Yeah.
But I think just that off season, like we've already said, is going to be huge. So you certainly feel if he had got hurt again, let's say something, God forbid, would have happened in April, and they said, well, they were playing pickup and he's hurt an ankle, or he's tweaked the knee again, or you're kind of thinking, well, it's sad, but it's just not meant to be. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's not occurred. So, the opportunity's there. So if he's ever going to have a shot to do that, you feel like now is as good a time as any.
He averaged 3.2 points a game last year, shot 44.2% from the floor, attempted 16 threes and made 4 of them.
The first year, though, I think.
Pardon me?
6. I know we didn't play a whole lot of games.
Yeah, he scored 14.
6.8, I think.
Yeah, I think I can't remember exactly what the numbers were, but he scored 14 in the win over UCLA. Hit a couple threes, and Roy joked after, well, we don't really expect Anthony to hit threes. And then last year when they were going to, some of the point guard stuff with all the turnovers, and someone asked Roy about Anthony Harris as possibly an option to get on the ball. Someone was like, Anthony's not a point guard. But when I was at practice a couple of weeks ago, they had all the guards doing ball handling drills, and they were pretty intense ball handling drills with tight defense, and he looked a lot smoother. Now, that was just a drill. That may not translate into the game. To me, he looked like a guy that didn't have great fingertips with the handle and with the shot. He's just a bouncy player out there, and you could use bouncy guys in certain situations. But maybe he is more refined now, because you cannot develop your ball skills in December, January, and February. You develop your ball skills in May, June, and July. And so he's had that May, June, and July now. And I think, again, it makes him a wild card. We get to go to we get to watch them coming up with exhibition games. They get the season starting, November 8th. And I'm looking forward to seeing what his skill set looks like. I know he can bounce. I know he could drive. I know he's got energy and can defend. What kind of skill set is he? How much more refined is he? That will determine an awful lot about how much he ultimately plays.
And you make an interesting point. We kind of talk about some of these other guys. We talk about Dawson Garcia. How does he fit in? And we've been able, like when we were talking about him, when we were talking about RJ, we were able to kind of define what they do. We kind of know what they do and what their role is. So our question is, how does it fit into this roster and what Hubert Davis wants to do? We really don't know what Harris, because of all the injuries and everything, we really don't know what he can do.
Exactly.
So, there's, like you said, and I know you've got more questions about him. You've already said probably more than any other player. And I think that's something that would lead to that. Now, I think we got a lot of questions about a lot of guys, but he's certainly, there's more gray area with him, or as much gray area as there is of anybody. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, there's no way.
And that makes everything so fascinating. I think this team is going to be fascinating to cover, because I'm telling you right now, whatever they look like against Loyola, whatever they look like when they go to Charleston, whatever they look like when they go to Mohegan Sun, I think they're going to look a lot different in February and March. And I'm not so much saying that the playing rotation will be different. I just think how guys are used. I think the way that they fit together, a lot of that stuff's just going to get better and better as the year goes on, especially if Hubert does a good job. There's no reason to believe that he won't do at least a good job. But Anthony Harris, he might be one of those guys, David. I said this in a couple other podcasts. He might be one of those guys who gives you 18 or 21 minutes, not points. And then another game, he gets you 4 minutes, because he's just, there are a lot of clubs out there that would love to have a 6'4" guy who's going on 21 years old, he's got some bounce, he can defend, he's got some energy, happy to be there, who might have better skill set than we've seen, that could find a role for him. To me, Anthony Harris might end up being a luxury for this team, especially if he can produce some stuff through the skill stuff, some of the skill stuff. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how it evolves. We're going to talk about Puff Johnson in another podcast. I think he's another guy. I saw him do some really nice things when I was at practice, and really fluid things. Where's the spot for him? Where are the minutes? There's only 200 minutes a game unless it goes in overtime. And you know that Caleb and Armando are going to play a lot of them. And probably Dawson Garcia is going to play a lot of them. So how does Hubert sort those other minutes out? I think situational stuff is going to be what the season's about, especially for guys like Anthony Harris. And it's going to be really interesting to watch.
Well, there's one good thing about it. You can't have too much talent.
No.
And how many teams, when you go down, let's say he's a 9th or 10th guy, that a lot of teams are bringing you or me off the bench. And, the ninth reminds me of the old Happy Days episode when Ralph Mouth was on a team and a guy fouls out and the coach looks down the bench and he says, "All right, Mouth, get in the game." And he jumps up and pulls his warm-ups off. He's got a suit and tie on under it. He says, "Coach, I never get to play." So, that Hubert's not in that boat. He's going to have, he's got talent. So, like I said, it's just, these guys are just going to have to sort through the muddle and just come in every day and try to make the case to Hubert Davis on why I'm your guy. So,
by the way, how old are you and I? You just gave a Happy Days reference. And when we were in between recording these podcasts, I gave you a Brady Bunch reference.
Oh, yeah.
Because, Marcia, man. It's all about Marcia.
Yeah. We could go back to our days and we could talk about the field forward 4 corners. So
yes, we're up there in years. Anyway, David, great stuff. Anthony Harris, can't wait to see what he eventually evolves into this year as a piece to this big, talented puzzle that Hubert Davis has to work with. He's David. I'm AJ. Thanks for stopping by.